Despite being one of the most important cocktails of all time, being said to have evolved from the Manhattan and eventually into the Martini, the Martinez often slips under the radar of a lot of cocktail drinkers. This drink's absolutely delicious, so easy to make, and today I'm going to show you how. So, welcome to Essential Cocktails. Let's make a Martinez. So if you're not familiar with a Manhattan, I'll put a video all about that drink just up here for you to watch. And I probably do recommend watching that first, because then this drink will make a lot more sense. And that kind of lineage from Manhattan to Martinez to Martini will just have a very clear path, and you can see how one evolved into the other, evolved into the next. And that's quite an important chain of events, really. They're three absolutely fundamental cocktails, despite two of them being a lot more popular than one. And the one we're going to talk about today, which is a bit less popular, although it shouldn't be, is the Martinez. So just like the Manhattan, we're going to have a spirit base, which rather than being bourbon or rye or some kind of whiskey, is actually going to be gin in our Martinez. And this can be a lot of different types of gin. London dry gins become very popular, mostly because it's readily available, but it does work really nicely in the drink. But traditionally this might be a Geneva, it might be an Old Tom gin, which is going to change the dynamic of the drink quite a lot, either with a more malty style or something a little bit sweeter. So I'm going to stick with London Dry today because it is very readily available and it's really delicious, but play around with whatever you have, and if you have different types of gin, get them in here. So once again, comparing this to a Manhattan, that drink contains vermouth and the Martinez is no different. So we've got our spirit base, we've got our vermouth, which is going to be a sweet vermouth, but we'll talk more about that in a second. But in the Martinez, we've got one extra ingredient, which is going to be a little bit of maraschino liqueur. So this is a cherry liqueur. It's going to bring a little bit of fruitiness to the drink and another layer of complexity which you perhaps wouldn't otherwise find. And then to finish off, we're going to go with our bitters. In a Manhattan, you'd probably go for an aromatic bitters, but I really like in a Martinez to go with an orange bitters, because we're leaning into the kind of more botanical notes, the more citrusy notes that you find in the gin, and then the more fruity notes that we find in the maraschino. So this is a really easy drink to put together. 4 ingredients stirred down with ice and a garnish, and I'm going to show you how to put it together now. So some recipes I've seen for a Martinez call for equal parts of our spirit and our vermouth, but I prefer to go for a 2-to-1 ratio, which has become the more kind of popular way of doing things. And that's also in line with our Manhattan, which we've spoken about the similarities between these two drinks. So I'm going to go with 50 mils of our gin, 25 mils of our sweet vermouth, and I'm going with Cocchi di Torino, which is a really delicious vermouth. But you can experiment with other styles of vermouth, and some recipes actually started calling for dry vermouth. So if we see how we've moved from an equal part spirit and vermouth recipe to a more spirit forward recipe of 2-to-1, we've moved from a sweet vermouth to a dry vermouth. We've also got the bitters in there, which is sometimes in a Martini. You can really see how this has evolved over time to be a real inspiration to the Martini itself. So to 50 mils of gin, 25 mils of vermouth, we're just going to go with a tiny amount, 5 mils of our maraschino liqueur, just for a little bit of fruitiness in there and a little bit of sweetness. And then finally, 3 dashes of orange bitters, bringing that really nice bittersweet, zesty character to the drink. We're going to stir this down with plenty of ice until it's really nice and cold. Strain into a chilled Nick and Nora or coupe glass. And then we're going to garnish the drink with your choice of either an orange zest or a cherry, and I'm going to go with orange zest today. So you just want to take off a nice big peel, which we can express over the drink without getting too much pith there. You don't want it to be super bitter. So express that over the drink for that really nice citrus oil aroma. Rim the glass, and then we just want to tidy this up and make a really beautiful looking garnish. And this can just sit nicely on the rim of the glass, but equally a cherry would also be delicious. And there we have a fundamental drink which is perhaps underrated despite being very important to the world of cocktails, which brings really nice botanical notes of gin, really nice herbal notes of the vermouth, and a little bit of fruitiness from the cherry and the orange, and it's called a Martinez. If you haven't given that one a try, I strongly recommend that you do.